Yeah, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Hot Off the Press. And, today I'm kind of excited. I had an opportunity to reconnect with somebody from, I don't know, we'd met years ago at like a mastermind conference in
It was in
Las Vegas,
Vegas.
I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
And then I don't know what in the world happened. We kind of lost track of each other. And then you were presenting at SEO Spring Training Digital Conference online like a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, Jacob, dude, let's reconnect. Let's get you on the show. Let's hear what's going on. So, folks, Jacob Kettner is the founder CEO of a SEO agency out of Canada called First Rank, and I'll drop that his link into the chat. Folks can go grab that and go check it out. Also, let me see if I can. I'm gonna. But anyway, you go ahead and talk a little bit about yourself. I'm going to pull up your site and show you as well. But why don't you give a quick, like, little bit of background, who you are, when you started in this crazy SEO industry, all of that fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. So I've been in SEO for about 11 years now, which sounds kind of crazy to say. I got started back, pretty much right after Penguin came out, and
Okay.
that was kind of a fun time to get into SEO because we could do high quality white hat SEO with PBNs instead of spammy X-Rumor SEO. But we don't use PBNs anymore. Not that they don't work, not a conversation we need to have. Yeah, that was a fun time to get involved. And I had started off really just freelancing. I wasn't sure if I was going to do affiliate stuff or agency, and I ended up helping a few friends. Got some clients, and we ranked for our city SEO term. I live in Winnipeg. We ranked Winnipeg SEO #1 took I think 3 months at the time. Yeah. And we've been there pretty much ever since. And that just sort of led to new business coming in. So we started hiring people, and then I kind of took a divergent path from, I think, most of my colleagues in the SEO space at the time. So when I originally started off, I had hired virtual assistants in the Philippines, and I was trying to build this remote laptop lifestyle business. And then I had kids and thought, wow, I don't want to work from home. I want to work from an office. And so ended up restructuring. I got rid of most of that team and started hiring locally. So today we've got about 30 people that work for the company. Almost all of those people are in the office daily. We have, I guess we have a few remote people for various reasons, but we're primarily sort of an office culture business. And I think really, like, probably 5 years ago, I had this realization. It's actually, if you've ever read E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, he kind of talks about the idea that there's this pie maker and she's passionate about making pies. And really, to become an entrepreneur, she has to redefine the product. The product isn't the pie. The product is the business. Right. And that really, I thought that was such a cool concept. And I just got really into business management, implementing things like EOS and Traction, and like empowering leaders and team structure. And so I would say at this point, although I'm still an SEO nerd, I weigh in on the SEO stuff. I have a head of SEO that is accountable for that part of the business. Mm-hmm. And my focus has definitely shifted more into the optimization of processes and people. So.
Interesting. Hey, morning, Robbie. With your business now, so you've been in what? How long? Like, I'm trying to.
Yeah, we're 11 years this
Uh,
month, actually. Yeah.
okay, I was going to say, so when you were saying like penguin, I'm like, what was that, about 10 years ago or something like that? Yeah. So now, like, what's the size of your team? What do you have? So you started out. Yeah, I always find it interesting, and people kind of recant their story and their journey. One I find is very interesting. A lot of guys, similar to you and me, you kind of start out first maybe in affiliate, like, well, I kind of started dabbling around in affiliate, built some sites, started making this thing work, figuring it out. Um, but and then you're like, okay, hey, we did it, and I started hiring a team, and like you dove in early. It sounds like kind of hiring a team. So where do you sit now on hiring a team, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it was an interesting. I actually got some great advice from Mike Milas, if anybody still keeps up with him. Back when I first, when I hired my first person, I remember I was like, "Okay, I'm really good at like 80% of these things, and there's like 20% of these things that I don't really do well, and I don't
Mm,
want to do them. And I'm gonna hire her, and she's gonna figure out those things, and I'm gonna do the things that I'm good at." And I had this conversation with Michael, and he's like, Jake, you got it backward. He's like, you got to train her on the things that you're really good at, that you like doing, because you can train that stuff, and then you free up your time and you go figure out the 20% of the stuff that you don't like and don't understand.
uh,
Um, and that was like some of the best business advice anybody's ever given me.
yeah,
Basically, she was able to and as such, she was able to take over, buy back so much of my time that I could go. And at the time, the job was basically hiring, basically organizing people's campaigns, and then buying stuff from vendors. We had vendors where we'd buy links, content, all this stuff. We didn't have a team to do that stuff. And by her taking over that part, I was able to go and focus in each team and say, okay, we're going to build a content team. And her name was Luciana. I said, Luciana, you're going to start ordering from our team instead of ordering from this vendor. And then we just went around and replaced all of the teams one by one. So
hmm,
that was kind of how we did things. We're at an interesting place right now because I've always kind of defined the success of my business by the number of employees that we have. And people say,
yeah,
"How big is your business?" I say, "Hey, well, we've got 30 people." It's and I think that even if we continue to grow, like I want to grow another 3 or 4x over the next 5 years, we may have the most employees that we're ever going to have right now, just given uh, the opportunities and the changes that are coming with AI. So,
right, right,
so that's very interesting, and
yeah,
we're actually applying the same methodology to, I mean, I guess we call them AI positions, that I did at the very beginning, that we're taking the things that we're really good at, that we have great SOPs for and processes, and replacing that piece, like by training an AI to do it. And then the other tasks around it are still getting completed by people. So the
right,
people that are doing all the other roles don't really notice that task isn't a person anymore.
right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that kind of bizarre? You've touched on so many things. I want to be sure. Hey guys, as well. If you have any questions for Jake, throw them in the chat. Absolutely, drop on, say hi, all of that fun stuff. Good to see a few guys on here. Um, it's so funny. Well, a couple of things I want to comment on. I love your comment in regards to assigning or handing off the things that you're really good at, that you're the expert on, and training that other person. I I as you were talking through that, I'm like, "Oh, wow. I don't know. That is really something." Only because I know for myself, that would be hard because the stuff that I'm really good at, I really enjoy doing, and so it would make it difficult for me. Sometimes that's the stuff that, like, just keeps me involved in the business anyways, because I'm doing stuff that I really enjoy doing. But your approach and the way you explain is like, Oh, that makes a hell of a lot of sense, actually.
That's where that mental shift comes in, though, that
Yeah,
the product that you're passionate about has to shift from the thing that the business sells to the business itself.
yeah,
And once you make that shift completely, then the thing that you enjoy doing becomes working on the business.
right.
And like at this point, like people will bring me things out of order. Like like my sales guy will come to me and be like, hey, like, I'd like to get this project moving faster because if they do that, if we complete their website quicker, they'll sign on for this thing. And I'm like, that's great. I'd love to do it. We got to go talk to the operations manager because I don't even know the schedule. Like I can't say, yeah, we're going to do that first because I wouldn't know what we're bumping to make that happen.
Yeah,
But my job now is to make sure that is to really give those people accountability and then help empower them to make the right choices.
yeah, yeah. How long? I'm curious on that. So, when you were even talking like that transition, because there's a couple like Pete, I know Kleingen is on here, and I know Pete runs a agency
I
out
know
of South.
Robbie.
Yeah, yeah. So Pete runs an agency out of South Dakota, actually where I went to college, even in Sioux Falls. How Pete and I have talked about, and I've met some of Pete's staff, but how long did it take you to like make that transition? Because I know it's like as guys who own agencies and operate agencies, we're all in it for different purposes, I suppose, and what motivates us. But when I talk to people, and I mentioned Pete only because I know Pete is kind of like in this moment of transition as well, a little bit of how he's approaching the agency. How long did it take you to kind of make that transition to focusing more on the business and driving your passion, I guess, in operating the business versus doing the services?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, for me, it was probably 5 or 6 years into the business that shift happened. But I don't think it has to be. I think it's more at scale. So some people I
Yeah,
spent the first 4 years working as a solopreneur. So somebody else might get to that scale in 6 months.
yeah,
But at some point, like ultimately, our purpose as a business is to provide our clients with the highest level of value and the best price to value ratio possible. And that's something I actually wrote this like 2-page little like manifesto that I like circulate to my staff recently. That's like, it's like we don't try to get good results to keep our churn rate down. Our churn rate goes down because we get good results. Like
right,
it's not that, a low churn rate and profitability and like all these are not the core focuses. The core focus is how do we provide the highest amount of value, and then ultimately, like, because I got pushback from one of my leadership staff said, okay, well, where do we draw the lines? Because we could say that we would provide the highest level of value if we over delivered for everyone every month and didn't make any money. And I said, well, no, we wouldn't. We maybe in the short term we would, but then we'd go out of business and we wouldn't provide any value. So it's like, if we reframe everything back to like, how do we provide the most value? We actually need to be profitable because that's going to incentivize our we're going to be able to pay people better. We're going to have top talent. Our leadership team is going to get their bonuses. They're going to be motivated to stay and grow. So it's like, I don't know, everything kind of back to that one thing. So that's a long answer, but I guess where it happens is at some point, me being the bottleneck on SEO results was not providing the highest level of value to our clients. And so it wasn't about making more money or having more freedom or anything. It's that if we're going to grow and scale, we can't scale a business where I personally need to be involved with every campaign to be able to make them successful.
right, right. For that transition, how I'm curious on the conversation, really on your ability to make that transition. Like, was it just like the next day you woke up like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I mean, or was it like a couple of months, kind of a time frame? Because I know as well, you also have instituted, you said EOS, and which is kind of a management uh, um, principle, I don't know, strategy, tactic, whatever you want to call it, theory. And so you've employed that, or you do employ that. And maybe that was part of that process, that transition as well for you.
Yeah, so I'd say really that, and I mean I don't want to just say all the cliche business stuff, but a lot of
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
A lot of it came down to building a vision of what I was trying to build, and I
Mm,
actually had a very clear vision, and the vision was an organizational chart. And at the start, when it was just this one other person and me, I said, "Okay, like this company is going to be great when we have." I think I wanted 5 people. It wasn't going to be a big company, but it was like there's going to be like me doing like visionary strategic vision and company stuff, and then
yeah,
we're going to have somebody in charge of off-page SEO, somebody in charge of on-page. We're going to have somebody doing sales, somebody doing client management, and I think a content person. And that was like, I was like, once we have that, we have all of the pieces that we need to have a successful business. So it was really like I just had this push to like get there. And it was always like, how
mm,
much money do we have to make to be able to afford that next hire so that we have what we need?
yeah,
And once we got there, um, it was, I wouldn't say we stagnated. We continued to grow, but in a little bit more of a disorganized way because I didn't have a clear vision of the next step from there. So like that, I would say to directly answer your question, that was sort of the day that I drew that on paper. That was the day that the transition really happened. Once we accomplished that, then we grew, and then we'd hire somebody because somebody was too busy, and then we'd have 2 people, but it was they'd be working. One would be a senior and one was a junior, and there was like we just kind of grew without strategy for a little bit, um, and and at some point I had to go back and redraw the chart for the next size. And that was always, and for different people it might be different things. It might have, maybe it's number of clients or revenue goals, or
yeah,
like you draw your vision board. For me it was always like what the org chart looks like.
yeah. That's interesting that you focused on the org chart. I mean, I always focus on like, I probably focus on the wrong thing sometimes, but I've always just kind of focused on top line. All right, here's the top line. Here's a rev that I want. And I know really I should be focusing on, like my EBITDA or bottom line profitability and not top line. Who the hell cares? Um, but I don't know that I've ever talked to anybody that said like focused on the org chart. Once I get this org chart, I know we're going to be great.
Yeah, no, that was always my focus. And actually it's a weird time right now because I'm changing that because
Yeah,
the future org chart is the same size or smaller.
yeah,
um yeah.
yeah. That is crazy. I want to get into that a little bit when you started talking about AI and automation, but before we start going down that path, because that will just like take control of everything. I did want to just dig a little bit, kind of in the origin of First Rank. Do you remember your first major client win, when you succeeded in landing that first major client? What was that like? How did you do it?
Yeah. So, okay, I've got 2 stories for you.
All right.
Uh, the first is my first client, which was not a major client win, but it was very exciting because it was my first client, and that was I'd actually been listening to a webinar by the OMG guys.
Oh
I
yeah,
wasn't part
yeah.
of OMG, but I like to listen to their sales webinars. And Mike Long was talking about, uh, he was bragging about these #1 results that they got for this eyelash extensions business in Nashville, I think. And I said, man, that's a silly thing to brag about. Like that's like got to be one of the most like least competitive Ever. Like it's a bunch of like part-time like stay-at-home moms that like start a business in their basement. So I thought that's brilliant. I need to do the same thing. I don't have any proof of results. I'm gonna rank somebody in the eyelash extensions business. And so I reached out just in my local city here, and I just graduated university, and I sent a cold email. Found the perfect person that needed a new website, and like,
Right, right.
and I was like, "Hey, I'm Jacob. I just graduated from the local university. I'm trying to start a business. I don't have any clients. I'd like you to be my first client. I'd be willing to work for free until we start to see results." And so she met me at Tim Hortons, and she signed on, and it ended up. I got the results that we said. She ended up being a $300 a month client, which was very exciting for me at the time. But I remember the moment, like I still wasn't actually 100% sure that I was good at SEO. I'd learned about things to do, but I hadn't really had success yet until I had this test client. And I remember I built a PBN, and I built an exact match anchor link to her website, and I'd check it like every hour to see if the rank track. I was using SERP Fox, check every hour to see if the rankings. And it'd been like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, and nothing had moved. And I was like, I don't know if this even works. And I was at a friend's beer league hockey game, and I was sitting in the stands, and I pull up my phone and refresh it, and this like flat line had gone from like whatever position 22 to like position 12. So it just went, and I was like, holy shit, this works. Like, this actually works. Yeah, it was that was very exciting.
That's a good win.
Yeah. The first big client that I landed was actually not that great a story. They found me on Google, and I did up my pitch, but that was exciting too, because that was like my first like 8K a month client. I think my previously was like 1,200 a month. So I was like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, my first big client, it really wasn't a big story. It just happened, and we did our thing, and we signed them. Yeah, that's always fun. So I know now you work with clients, I'm sure, across both the U.S. and Canada. Are there any differences, that you see between, the markets at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. We actually work primarily in Canada. I'd say we have maybe 15% of our clients are in the US right now.
Okay.
But there is I would say, well, one of the biggest differences is the private healthcare. So stuff like we work a lot with like orthopedic doctors and like stuff like that. Like there's zero market for that in Canada, because they're all on huge wait lists, backlogs, referrals from like our medical system sucks. So that's really interesting. But also just like it seems it's not necessarily like an SEO difference. I'd say like the ranking factors are similar. Sure, there's some, sometimes stuff like Angie's List or Thumbtack pops up in the US that's not in Canada, but generally it's more like the entrepreneurial nature is more aggressive in America. It's like in Canada, a lot of people will kind of get to, they'll have their, $2 million a year business, $3 million a year business. And they're like, yeah, like I'd like to grow like 10% a year. I'd like to I don't want to invest too much. I don't want to rock the boat. Let's and I talk to these guys in the States, and they're like, yeah, like I did 2 million in my first year, and like, we're trying to do 200 million. And like, they just go. So there's definitely like more budgets there for SEO, but they're also like, they'll sign on faster. They'll leave faster.
Because I know what you're saying, is because I think here in the States anyway, this mentality is like, okay, if we're going to grow, we're growing now. And if you're not delivering results like immediately, then okay, I got to go somewhere else. Yeah. That is interesting. And I don't know if that's unique Americana, so to speak, but definitely is a personality trait that we have here in the States. Um, so one of the things as well I love, I think I read in some of your background, I don't know if you still are, are you still involved in like in the local chamber of commerce?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We actually a lot of. Sorry, why do you ask?
Oh, well, I think that it's great. I as well as one of the things that I did early on is that I joined our chamber, got very active in it. Um, I'm just finishing this year. I'm the past president of our chamber, and so I've been on our executive board for a number of years, and I think it's been a great experience. I haven't found a lot of other folks in our industry, that have been involved. And I'm curious on what your experience has been like, as far as being involved in the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, we've gotten like we as a company are part of three chamber of commerces, like our
Hmm.
city, our state, or province. Sorry,
Okay.
uh, but I would say like a few years ago, I was a lot more involved. I was part of like the Small Business Advisory Council, and I was like helping plan events and stuff. Um, I'll go to a few events a year, but I'm not involved at the same level that I was. And I've always said it's worth the membership fee just for the link,
Yeah. Yeah.
regardless of whether I attend anything. But I think it's just been my time. I'm trying to use my time more deliberately, and I'm part of some other organizations now. So I joined an organization called EO, or Entrepreneurs Organization,
Yep.
and I find it's more relevant to uh, just the size of business that I'm at. It's targeted. It's really anybody that does over $1 million a year in revenue. But really, there's another organization called YPO that kind of grabs the people that do over $10 million a year in revenue.
Right.
So I would
Right.
say EO is sort of like that 1 to 10.
Yeah.
There's some bigger businesses in it, but so I've gotten more involved there, and that's I'm on the board there, and so I think it's whatever the organization is, um, networking with other entrepreneurs that are at a similar size or a little bit bigger is extremely valuable. And like I really have to thank COVID for it, because my full network was always SEO people, because I travel, like that was it. I wouldn't hang out with other entrepreneurs, just people in the SEO space. And then when COVID came and I couldn't travel, I joined more local groups, and I realized like business is business, and like learning how people
Yeah.
are dealing with their issue in their, whether it's a pool building company or a car dealership or dental practice, like
Right.
everybody's having this, like the same challenges all relate to building processes, and managing people.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
processes and people.
Yeah.
And I've gotten so much value, and it's almost like I love the SEO industry. I've met some like amazing people in it, but it's a little bit incestuous. I guess that's a negative word, and I can't really say I don't mean that in a negative way, because that's just a negative word in general. Um, but it's like everyone's kind of looking in, and nobody's looking out, and like
Yeah.
there's so many great ideas that people are doing in other businesses that people aren't doing in these businesses. And like
Mhm.
it was, I
Mhm.
think somebody had said, oh, it was one of Dan Kennedy's books. I think it was in his No BS Direct Response Marketing. He talks about like car dealerships as the same thing, that they all look at each other, and like everyone's taking out these full page newspaper ads that probably are doing nothing for them. This was, I don't know, 10 years ago when they were still doing that. And they're like, but like, that's the thing that dealerships do, because dealerships
Right.
do
Right.
that. And like, I was like, I don't want to get stuck doing the same thing just because that's what people in my industry do,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think that's insightful, and I think you're absolutely right. In our industry, and it probably isn't unique, I'm guessing, in as in other industries as well. But you do get very insular, and you're the people you talk to, like, well, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, and That is as well similar, I think, a value that I pull out of my experience in the chamber is that I do enjoy, broadening out my network, both uh, and who I'm talking to in regards to business and trying to understand, how to approach the business in different ways and and kind of challenge me in how I am approaching the business and not just trying to like, okay, make the better pie, right? Being and focused on the latest and greatest in whatever's happening in SEO, which is always fun because that is, always intriguing, I think. But yeah, talking with other entrepreneurs and having that as part of your input, I think is always extremely valuable. And especially, and this kind of lands into kind of segues into a question I was gonna wanted to ask you. I always find that like some of those organizations, you say EO or a chamber or BNI is another one of these great networking kind of groups. Is a great way to like begin to build your client base as well and make connections and kind of develop leads. But I wanted to ask you a question in regards to if you were starting out from scratch today and you had, zero network or resources, how would you grow your digital business today versus how it looked 10 years ago?
Yeah. Okay, I want to answer that question. I want to touch on the previous conversation quickly first.
Yeah.
Just because the one other thing that I didn't mention is when you're dealing with somebody in your industry and they're like, hey, I've got this cool way of getting new clients and I've got all these email sequences and this way, it's like, could you share them with me? And they're like, no, because it's a huge, like, we realize we don't directly compete, but like, also I don't really want you stealing my thing because
right.
we're in the same industry. You talk to people in other industries and like there's none of that. It's like, sure, like you can have all my stuff. Like, I don't know how it applies to you, but you can go ahead and look at it. So that's helpful. If I were starting today with no network and no business, I wouldn't do SEO. No, 100% I wouldn't, because the way that I succeeded in this business at the beginning was all on risk reversals. It was all, if you don't get results, it's free or I'll work, whatever. And I could guarantee that stuff with like a fairly high degree of success. And it didn't cost me that much to rank sites. Right. And now it's more resource intensive and I can make less guarantees. So I rely on our reputation a lot I can't guarantee, and honestly it might not work, but I got to be honest with you and we're going to do the right things. Right. And so if I were starting today, I would look for a space where I could quickly prove value and potentially use risk reversals. And really, it's probably, it's probably relates to AI automation. It's that easy sell right now, and who knows where it'll be in 2 years. But right now, the majority of local businesses are saying, I'm hearing about AI. I know we should be doing something. I feel like we're falling behind, but I don't know what to do. And that's just like this like easy pain point to dump some salt in and grab business there. So. And how I would do it, I'd probably go, I'd probably do similar things to what I did originally. So I'd probably join a bunch of business owner Facebook groups and start providing value. I'd probably join a local BNI chapter and see if I could get some testimonial clients out of that. And I would probably try to get myself into speaking positions at local chamber stuff. It's like not that hard to do. Be the expert on that topic and do some presentations and get a few, like in any business. Like I guess people don't all do this, but for me, I'm like, okay, like I will work for free or grind it out to get like 3 to 5 raving fan clients.
Right.
and then we'll start making money. Like, yeah, I think that's the foundation for anything.
Yeah. It's getting out in front of people, getting some testimonials, getting some traction, and just kind of rinse and repeat. Yeah. Well, let's being that you kind of opened up that door a little bit as well, let's kind of take this pathway down AI and AI automations and such. I was intrigued by your presentation at the online conference a couple of weeks ago, and you were wonderful in sharing some of the stuff that you guys have created to assist in your own internal operations. And this is some of the stuff you've been alluding to a little bit as well throughout the conversation so far. Is like you've been creating some AI automations in order to streamline your operations, so you don't always necessarily need to expand your headcount. I think this is it is a very amazing, crazy, unbelievable time that we're living in to be able to go and do some of this stuff right now. But I'd love to, what are some of the things that you're doing internally right now with your AI automations? I don't know, share as much as you want. And I know you shared a lot on the online conference, which was great. But
Yeah, I mean, to kind of summarize some of that stuff, basically, I've always, well, not always, but in the last few years, I've been very focused on processes and data. And I feel like that's the foundation that you ultimately need to be successful implementing AI into things. Because if you don't have the processes already and you don't track what you do, then you're basically just bringing AI in without any fundamentals. So that would, as boring as it sounds, I would say that's the base level, is strong process and strong data. And when I'm talking about data, what I mean is recording everything that we do. We have a database for every piece of content we've written. Even content is broken out into steps. So we have our, one person comes up with the content guidelines, one person writes it, one person edits it, one person publishes it, one person gets it approved by the client, and each of those subtasks are tagged in a database. So having all of that information gives AI suddenly, like, AI is really good at reading fast, and I wouldn't even necessarily say analyzing data, because it's not necessarily great with numbers, but it's sure good at like mining information out of data. And so, to be able to, like, we've just been building productivity dashboards that are, easier for our managers to see how much people are doing and what we're focusing on. We're doing something that I'm just starting, or it's just past idea phase right now, is tracking churn rates. So actually I met Patrick Shannon at a conference a few weeks ago. And he laid out, for some reason, I'd never been able to measure churn rates in like what I thought was a fair way. So I'd be like, well, I want to see a specific SEO strategist or a specific client manager, like what their churn rate is.
Right.
But I was always trying to measure in terms of client retention instead of churn rate. So I'd say, okay, well, it's not fair because they might have inherited a client that's been on for 7 years, or what if somebody, like, all these numbers don't work. And he just laid it out so simply. He's like, every month, a successful agency loses between 3 and 7% of its clients. 3% is the target. Anything over 7 is a major problem. And I was like, oh, that's like such an easy way to measure. And I can measure that by role. So I could say, right, all of the strategists assigned, like all the clients assigned to this specific strategist, what's their monthly churn rate in terms of dollars, and compare that against all of the other strategists, and maybe not put their names on the chart, but at least show that person, hey, this is where, you're near the bottom of this, or hey, you're at the top, you're doing great. And like that kind of thing, I think would have taken a long time without AI. And with AI, it's pretty easy to build that dashboard, and it has live access to the database. And it's not stuff that you couldn't do with like Power BI or like a custom connector in Data Studio, but I can just do it so much faster now.
Mm-hmm.
The other project I'm working on is just getting all of our client communications into a database. So we've always databased the work that we're doing, but we haven't databased our communications other than notes. Like we'll put notes in.
Right, right.
We can get the full call transcripts and tag them by the client that was on the call and the employee that was on the call. Then we build up, and then phase 2 obviously is having an AI agent that accesses this, and we can ask questions and it can help us understand client priorities.
Right.
And then eventually, once it's like, it starts as an assistant to a client manager, but at some point it ends up replacing a lot of the responsibilities of the client manager. Not in full. I'd still like to have a face-to-face person, but we could, a lot of the reporting and project management components, and like there's just pieces that get replaced, and it's, everything starts as a tool to work, a tool for humans to use to make their jobs easier. And then as it gets better, it almost becomes a quality control checker to check how well the humans are doing the jobs. And then at some point it just does the jobs.
Yeah.
And humans work alongside doing the things that humans are inherently better at.
Yeah. Interesting. I am kind of curious. You're talking about database. What especially on the communication side of this database, which I think your application of this is really pretty cool. That's brilliant, I think. What is the database that you're using to kind of capture and catalog that stuff?
So we're on the fence right now. We're working between, we're kind of in two environments, because our whole project management database is built in a software called Knack, K-N-A-C-K.
Okay.
And we're kind of fairly married to it because we've built a lot on it. And even if we rebuilt it, we have a lot of integrations with it and API calls. And
I know it.
But Knack prices based on records. So every time we add a record to the database, we pay more. So the easiest and most holistic approach would be to add all of our conversation data to the Knack database. But I think that we'll save a lot of money in the long run if we use like Supabase, or that's what we're looking at. As it's going to be a lot cheaper. It charges based on compute power instead of number of records.
Yeah.
And then I think we can connect the database. I think we can give AI access to both the databases, have unique IDs that match, and connect. But we're not. I'm not 100% there yet. Like the first step of the process was actually finding the right tools because we have our calls happen in multiple places. They could be on our VoIP system, or they could be in a Google Meet, or they could be in person, and then I'd like the email communication too. So like our first phase has basically been trying to get all of these into a place that we can use as a trigger for an N8N automation, and then from there, cleaning the data and getting it into a database. So we're in the early phases of this.
Well, the reason I ask is because I always think it's always challenging, and the communication side of client work is what always tends to be the squishiest, I will say, as far as being accurate and having all of this information accessible, right? Because generally, unless you're recording it, generally you're kind of relying upon somebody inputting notes into a CRM or something, right? And that's always where it breaks down. I always think a CRM is a great tool as long as the people are really using it and putting the information into it, because that's where it breaks down and becomes less effective. But if you're using and this is why I loved what as you were explaining it. But if you're using some kind of automated processes of recording and cataloging, and then being able to summarize and tie it all into your overall client base or your client database, then it's like, that becomes much more effective. Then you can use it, accurate information, accurate conversations. Then you can drive, follow-ups and activities based around those accurate conversations or customer interactions, or client interactions.
Yeah. And even in the sales process, like you often have, the salesperson will do an hour-long presentation call, and they'll get a bunch of important tidbits of what we're focusing on. They're open an hour later than their competitors and all this stuff, right? And then if that stuff doesn't make it into the client objective, then we've sold based on this pain point that the salesperson discovered, and then it never makes it through. So getting, and if you've worked with salespeople, they're generally not like, they don't love like making notes. They like getting on calls and talking to people. So if I can take that out of their job description and say, just do the call and we'll automate the rest, they're going to be happy. We're going to provide better service. There's a painting company franchise called CertaPro. And they have, I don't have the whole thing. There's like 5 steps to it, but basically the idea is that they don't want their customer to ever have to tell them the same thing twice. So they have, the client, the customer originally calls in, they say, hey, I'd like to get my kitchen painted. Do you do that? Then an estimator shows up. They should walk up to the door and say, hi, I understand that you're looking to get your kitchen painted. You don't want this wall or this wall, but like, this is what you're focusing on. Is that right? And it gives them the opportunity to add new context, but instead of the estimator showing up saying, so what do you want to get painted?
Yeah. What can I do for you today?
They already told the guy, right? And then the painter shows up and they do the same thing. They walk through it and they say, okay, so I understand we're doing this, this, and this. You want us to be very careful around this, whatever. So it's just that there were a few more steps to the process, but I just thought like how that, applies in my space. It's super valuable. If a client feels like they have to tell somebody something that they already told somebody else, like they're doing our job for us. They're helping manage our company, and that's not their job. We should be managing our company.
Right. Yeah. I hadn't quite thought of it in that kind of frame, but absolutely makes complete sense. And helps like solidify the experience for the client, right? Because nobody, as a client, and I've just over the last few weeks, I bought a car, and my experience was not great initially, and and it was some of this kind of like I had to like repeat my story like 3 times to 3 different people, and it was driving me nuts, where I just wanted to like say it and walk away, right? But yeah.
And if that second and third person came to you and said, so I understand that this is the story, you would be like, oh yeah, that's great.
It would be like, somebody's listening to me, right? Yes. And and at the end of the day, I think that's what we as people just like, hey, somebody listen to what I'm trying to say and help me solve this.
Right? And really, it's the only thing, like a good customer service is really the only thing that any of us have to sell on, because we can sell that we're the best SEOs in the world. But even if we are the best SEOs in the world, our customers don't know that because they haven't worked with all the other ones. Yes, we have to get good results, but ultimately it's a customer service game like any other business, right?
Yep, absolutely. So you're talking about building applications and doing things where you've got AI applications, automations working kind of alongside the human elements. Are you at a place, or have you already essentially created automations that have replaced human activity?
Yes. We're at an interesting place. We have done that, but we have not yet. We haven't let somebody go because their job was replaced. We've moved some people and responsibilities around. And certain, so for example, like certain writing tasks are done by AI now, and it gets assigned to the AI writer, and it's in our project management system. Like it's not like it gets assigned to a person that then goes and uses a tool to generate AI content and then brings it back. It just gets assigned to them, and then
Right.
it gets uploaded into the Google Drive folder the exact same way that a human would do it. And then it goes on to the editor. So the editor receives this, it just skips that.
Right.
But we're still using our human writers for certain clients and certain types of content. So it's like, I wouldn't say that we've like wholesale, like fully replaced like a person, but we're replacing steps. And I guess at some point we replace enough steps that it's a full role, but
Yeah.
it's one step at a time. Everything. I think I talked a little bit in that presentation you're referencing on just like if you try to build something that makes you 10 times more efficient, it's going to be overwhelming and take too long, and you get really excited for the first half of building it and then probably scrap it because it doesn't do what you want. If you build little things that make you 10% more efficient at a time, or 2% more efficient, you're going to get them shipped and into production, and people are going to use them, and then you move on to the next one. So that's kind of my focus right now, is like, let's keep a list of the big ideas because they're cool, and I'm not saying they're impossible. It's almost the opposite though. The whole concept, like 10x is easier than 2x, so like all of those like 10x thinking, like I'm really actually trying to focus on the
incremental piece and steps. I'm at a point where we've done some different kinds of things, and I'm at a point where I'm like, wow, we could like fully engage this aspect and kind of reduce some headcount. And I'm really nervous about that. Like to a point, like, I don't know that I can pull that trigger yet. And I'm not, only because I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, can I fully trust AI to do it accurately? And, I feel like, well, I can't completely reduce because I need somebody, and maybe this is just my own insecurity. I need somebody though to like review it and be sure it's good.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, the other piece too is what's the intent? Like, if you can replace somebody, is it to make better margins, or is it to provide more outputs to clients? And we kind of, like, at this point, I don't know where we'll land in the long run, but in the short term, I said, well, like, we need to be motivated to do this because we do want to make more profits.
Right.
But we also need to be more competitive. And like, if we're doing one blog post a month with humans, if the blogs are written by AI, why not do 8 blog posts a month? Like, we can increase our outputs significantly. And what we agreed on was, for now, and we might change the percentages, is we benchmarked the human input costs of doing each of the tasks. Then we took the AI costs, because the AI, there still has some costs, and there's some people involved in those tasks. And then we took the difference between those costs. So say it costs $1,000 to do with a human, and it costs $200 to do with AI. So we put it into our budgeting calculator pricing at halfway in between. So it'd be what, 600. And so basically I'm saying, okay, we're gonna do the innovation and develop more efficient ways of doing things, and we're gonna split our gains 50-50 with our clients. We're gonna make more money, and they're gonna get more efficiency. And as the market, if my competition decides to split it 90-10 and give it all to the client, then to stay competitive, we're gonna have to do that too. But it just we needed a way, because every month we put everyone's client budget into a budgeting calculator, and we were like, well, we can't, like, we need a price to assign to this stuff. So right now, I'm the questions that
throw it myself and kind of doing this balance or uh, trying to make decisions are around and similar to what I think you were kind of speaking to earlier, which is it going to get the best results for my clients, and how is it how can I get the best results on a bottom line impact, for our organization. And so I'm like, okay, well, if we did this, that would be great. I'm not sure that it's doing the same thing for our client side. So right now I'm very much weighted on, all right, I'm going to try to be sure I do the right thing for my clients first, and then hopefully, we'll screw everything into place appropriately so that it'll have positive impact on our bottom line as well. But the crazy thing, and I know, is that, well outside of SEO agencies and such, is that these are the questions that industries are asking themselves every day right now, right? Big companies, small companies, of like, how can we utilize AI and automations to be, both. And I think probably dependent upon the organization is where they're going to put more focus. Is it going to be all bottom line kind of focus? We can do this automation and drive a much greater bottom line impact without, and maybe they're not asking the questions about the customer result or value or what that brings at that side of the equation. But yeah, it's such a crazy world right now. I keep thinking about it all the time. And I know you have kids. My kids are a bit older than yours. I know I have one that's a sophomore at college. I have a senior in high school. I look at their world. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where you're launching into. It's so hard to predict, like the job market 5 years from now. When you're going to be out looking for something,
Yeah.
scares me.
Yeah, not to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but there's like, I think right now a lot of people are still thinking like AI is a great tool, but you still need humans to drive whatever.
Yeah,
And like I think a lot of us that use it more realize that that's like a pretty limited window. Like it's going to get better than humans at a lot of stuff fast. And I think like any job that involves sitting in front of a computer, like those are the first jobs that get replaced because it's easy. Whether it's an accountant or a lawyer or an
right,
engineer or a
right.
graphic designer, if you're operating a computer for a living, why not let the computer operate itself? Um, but then, it seems like we're way further out on like, uh, to build a robot that could like walk into somebody's home and like, swap out their furnace and like in
Yeah,
this like unique setting that's going to be different in every home. Like it seems way far out. But we're also like that's because we're constrained right now by the humans being the engineers that are building the robots. And as soon as we can replace the human engineers with robot engineers, I feel like the robots are going to get a lot better, a lot faster. So
isn't that a scary thought though? Just as you're even saying that, it's like, oh my god, that is like the Terminator come to real life right there.
anyway, I've reduced my business planning. Like I used to do 5-year plans. Like we're planning 18 months maximum. There's why waste resources planning for more than 18 months out when we have no idea what the world's going to look like.
uh, I even think 18 months might even be a long, deep.
That's our long plan.
Yeah, yeah. Man. Well, listen, Jacob, man, I appreciate you being on the show today. So good to hear how you're approaching business and growing the agency and operating the challenges that you face. And only wish you the best success going forward, man. You're
Thank
going
you
to be
so much. Thanks for
the
having me on.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, join us every week right here, Tuesdays at 10 Eastern for Hot Off the Press. And also go check out our YouTube channel. We've got new content we post out on every Thursdays as well. And go check us out over at The News Guy. And as well, go connect with our friend here today over at, let me drop your link over to First Rank on the chat again, and people can go connect with you, go check out your agency, and go see all of the great stuff that you can do for them. But again, Jacob, man, good to connect. Good to see you again. And so great, man. It's been like, I swear, I think that thing was that we were in Vegas was like in 21 maybe. I don't think it was like at the wasn't the year of like 2020 pandemic, but I think it was the next year maybe.
It was a few. I think we were roommates, weren't we? We shared a room.
Yes, we were. Yeah, we were like in a big bunk room or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on this stacked like a 5 or 6 stacked bunk bed that I'm
Yes.
like I could like crawl. I felt like I was in a submarine. I could crawl in, but I had about like I don't know, like 8 inches or something like that between me and the next thing when I was laying down. I was like, this is really a bizarre bed here. But yeah. That was fun, and it was in Vegas, which is always crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, brother. Well, listen, I appreciate you. Thanks for being on.